never miss a show.
Oh, gotta go! So visit your app store for a free download.
Home shopping away from home with the Create and Craft app.
A very good morning to you and welcome to Create and Craft. Lovely to have your company. My name is Jackie Joseph. We have got a lovely hour for you. Yes, ladies and gents, get your pencils, get your pens, get your papers, get your quilting mat, get your fabrics ready, because this is your quilting classroom, and who better to head the class than head teacher, Jennie Rayment.
Thank you kindly, Madam Pupil.
Always lovely to see. Always lovely to see Jennie. We have got a busy classroom, obviously,
yes.
And we're showing finishing, basically.
We are. We're going to show you how to bind, how to quilt, how to finish the thing off, and how to actually make a quag. A quag's a Jennie term.
Yeah.
There's a thing called a quillo, which is a quilt that turns into a pillow.
Yes.
Now you have to realise that America drives the quilting world.
Yeah.
And many terms for America come over here. The American term for a cushion is a pillow.
Pillow, yes.
And
right.
a quilt that turns into a pillow is like a sort of cushion with a quilt in. Okay. So all I've done is I've added handles, and it's a quilt that turns into a bag.
So it's a quag.
You see?
It all makes sense. It all makes sense.
So we're going to show you how to do this. We've got some of the things on the show today. On the 10 o'clock show, we're going to do many more things and more demonstrations on other things to do with the quag. But very briefly, Jackie, for those who don't know, here is your bag. If I open it out, you will see what is inside. And basically, we are talking about how you construct it and how you finish things off.
Oh,
okay.
My word.
So that lives inside its pocket. And if you just flip it round,
yes.
You've got bits on it there, you can see the pocket on the back
of
there,
course.
into which the quilt goes.
Goes in.
So
that's very clever. That's a quag. You've got to set your recorders now. Set your recorders now.
Because I'm not doing it again, all right?
I told you she was bossy. Shall we crack on with what we've got, some of the items that we've got on the show? We've got this great kit, the basting needles kit. So we've got your gold quilt basting needles.
Ideal for chatting things up.
Fabulous. We've got our flower head pins, which we absolutely love. We've got our invisible thread, which is absolutely brilliant.
So changing colours when you're quilting.
Absolutely. I love this leather thimble.
Hand quilting, you don't get sore fingers.
We don't want sore fingers. And then, of course, you've got your quilter's masking tape, and which is perfect, 1/4 inch.
Yes, so you can sew down the side of it.
Lovely. So we're going to be showing you, obviously, how to use them throughout the show. You're saving £2.96 straight away if you're buying it as a bundle. Obviously, they're sold separately, but as a bundle, the savvy shopper will be buying it as a bundle. 319561, that is the item number there. Shall we talk about the threads?
You've got to have threads.
You've got to have threads.
Yes, and you've got a nice range of colours there. You've got 150 metres on each reel. Really
100 metres on each reel, yeah.
And it's a good range of colours. Pop the thread in, because, you know, for £6.99 you're going to cap your postage, you might as well have some thread. And it's a good price.
It is. $15.29, it's a great club price. 319759, that is the item number there. Shall we talk about the bias ruler? Yes. Again, this is a necessity, isn't it, Jen?
Well, people find it great difficulty in actually cutting on the bias.
Yeah.
And this takes the hard sums out, because all you would do is lay your fabric out, you put the angled line along the straight edge of the fabric, either the selvage or the straight edge, just puts the ruler on the bias, you can't go wrong. It takes the difficulty out of it. So when someone says on the bias, get your ruler out, put it with a on the straight edge.
It really does save all the mathematics, and I love the fact that it folds in as well.
You can't break it.
So you can't break it, but also great if you're going to your craft classes or if you're travelling and you want to take your quilting work with you. Absolutely perfect. This is a great price at £20.69, 268314. That is the item number there. Jennie, boom!
Now this has got the quag in it.
It's got the quag in it as well.
Now the quag that's in the book is actually hanging behind you over there.
Oh, okay.
And that's a quag. Okay?
That is a quag.
Yeah.
Not to be confused with a wag. It's a quag, which is a quilt in a bag.
You are so right. This book has 12 different blocks in it that can be used as a quilt or in different projects.
Yes.
It also has binding in it, and we're going to be doing binding
Fabulous.
today. It binds around curves and it binds around straight things. So if you're looking for something that's going to give you a bit about quilt finishing, this book has bits about in it, and it tells you how to make the
more.
Quag. There's all your binding, etc., and many more. That's binding around a straight quilt. We've also got binding around around a curve. So,
Brilliant.
and it's got humour in it, Jackie.
It's got great stories in there. It's a really great book. £13.49. 275978. That is your item number there. It's got everything that you need. Shall we talk about fabrics?
Most things that you need.
Well, you've got, you know,
Some
anecdotes
things.
and all the rest of it in there. Shall we talk fabrics? I'm just going to unveil this.
Look, and look, I played with that. Where is it? Where's my sample? Here, let me reach across to you.
Yep,
Careful,
yep.
careful. That one's got pins in.
That's okay.
I had a little play. And look, this is a sort of cot quilt.
Oh.
Okay, getting ready for its quilting. So we've got the fabrics that I've used, and I used
fabrics.
the Trirex one, which I think we've got on the show later on. Yes, we have.
Yeah.
We've got this template on the show with its trimate. I fussy cut, so I've got little birds going round the edge.
That's
there was
beautiful.
enough fabric left, Jackie, from the back quarters that were there to also make the back of it. So this is made literally from the pack, and I had some left.
And you still had some left.
Yes.
They are beautiful fabrics. They are absolutely stunning. And I mean, it's a nice range, isn't it?
It is a nice range.
Fantastic range, and they all complement each other. It is beautiful. For £9.89, it's a great price. You're getting all of these.
A metre and a half for £9.89.
Yeah, and 100% cotton as well. 319472. That is the item number there. We've got more fabrics.
Yes,
I love this.
Okay, right,
I love
because
it.
you had the chickens. Okay, you've got chickens on here. I had the fussy cut. Now, fussy cut is. This, I know it's a waste of fabric, and you know it went against my Yorkshire blood, but if you very carefully, and I use the hexagon template to put it over certain chickens, so that I could get the certain chickens cut out. Let's get
It's
rid
worth
of that.
doing the fussy cut for certain things, isn't it?
You see,
That's
it's right
beautiful.
way up. And it's a little quilt, you see.
That's beautiful.
So it's got chickens here and chickens on the corners. And again, there was enough fabric there to do the front and the back. And it's just waiting for me to get the time to actually finish off sewing the binding.
That's beautiful. Isn't this beautiful and fresh?
Yes.
It's absolutely
It's a
lovely.
cot quilt. I mean, you don't have to make a cot quilt.
Yeah, but it's beautiful. So you're getting all of that. These are beautiful fabrics, and again, fantastic colour tones, really fresh, absolutely beautiful. You're getting all six, £8.09 if you are in the Create and Craft Club. Absolutely wonderful. 319474 is your item number there. Now, whilst we're here, let's talk about the square ruler, because again, this is important
you
as well.
need this. I mean, if you're starting patchwork, at some point in time, you're going to want one of these. I shall be using it because it's got a 1/4 inch line round the edge, which makes it nice and easy for me to help square up my blocks where my points might be a little distray, not quite where they did ought to be.
Yeah.
So I will be using it to square it up. But many blocks in the patchwork world are 12.5 inches. So if you want a backing square, you simply draw around the ruler. Cushion front, draw around the ruler. But you can cut any size of square from 12.5 to 1/4, right the way up and down. And it has a bias line marked in the middle, and it's also got 60 and 30, so you can cut different angles.
Brilliant. Yeah, absolutely brilliant. 303500, £15.29. Now, the world famous, I love my double-sided cutting mat. I've got two now, and I've got the glass mat as well.
Now, you mustn't cut for your patchwork on the glass.
I don't.
You want a self-healing one.
This is great.
Yes. Nice sturdy mat. It's got a solid white core down the middle. Can we get the white core down the middle? There we go. And which keeps it nice and firm. You've got metric on one side. So this is where you do your scrapbooking, your card making. You get your glue and your glitter on this side, folks.
Yeah.
You do your patchwork and your piecing on this side. Unless, of course, you're continental, in which case you do your patchwork on the other one.
Yes. Exactly. Now, the double-sided cutting mat is a great price, £20.69, 304771. If you're going for the cutting mat and you want a great cutter, you need to get your rotary cutter. This is your 45mm cutter. And again, I have two of these. You need to have two.
I have several.
Yes.
But how this mat works is you can push as hard as you like and it will heal up.
It's brilliant.
And there you've got your cutter. It's a lefty-righty one.
Yes. It's fantastic. It really is. It's a necessity. And again, what a great price, £15.29, 307826. That is the item number there. Where are we going to next? Oh, should we go to the batting?
Fluff. Fluffing like a bit of fluff. Here we've got the batting. Now, I'm afraid we haven't got a decent sample here because I had to go at it and I lost the bag. So, you know, my
fault.
Yes.
And it's had bits chopped out of it.
That's
so it's
okay.
not as big as it was.
But it's big enough.
But it's really nice.
So 72 inch by 90 inches, beautiful. This is premium quality cotton batting.
It's lovely to work on. It's nice to hand sew through, and it's nice to machine through.
Yes.
And if you put your piece of work on the top, it's only a small thing, perhaps a cushion cover, and just press it on, the iron just helps to lightly stick it to it, and it holds it nicely.
It's
also
lovely.
Great, Jackie, as a design wall, because if you hang it up, your fabric just sticks to it.
Oh.
And so if you're making a design wall, perhaps you've got to go somewhere, a bit of the batting, as it's often called in America, works as a really good design wall, because the fabric I mean, if it's small pieces, but it actually will stick to it, and it stays, but you need small pieces.
Oh, that's very clever.
Yep.
It's like magic. It really is. £15 and 29 pence. 252259. That is the item number there. Should we talk about invisible thread?
No.
Yes.
You can't see it. Now listen, you get invisible clear and invisible smoke.
Wow.
Now this is for doing light fabrics and this is for doing dark, because you can just see the sheen of it.
Oh, I
see. So you might want a darker sheen.
So you've got either, you can go for the clear, or of course you can go for the smoke. £1 and 34 pence each. £1.34 for your clear, £1.34 for your smoke. 253229. That is the item number there. Should we talk about our buyer's tape maker? What size have we got here?
We've got 25 millimetres.
mil.
This is the big daddy of them all. And this I'm going to be using for making my binding with. There are many ways to make binding, and I will show several, but one of the ways you can make the binding is using that. And what that does is you stuff in a 2-inch wide piece of fabric, you get your little clover mini iron, you iron the fabric, and it comes out with the sides pressed to the middle.
Beautiful.
And
yeah,
I find
so
it quite a good way of making bias binding.
Very quickly. And £8 and 9 pence is brilliant. For quickness, it is a lifesaver. 192149, that is the item number there. Talking of the clover iron, we've got it here. And we've got the stand, we've got the iron, of course, you've got the screwdriver.
You know why there's a screwdriver?
Yeah, why is there a screwdriver?
Well, because that screw can come off and you can change the head. So like the head can be various different ones, and it depends what you're doing. So you can buy different heads, and that's why you've got the screwdriver. Actually, it's a really useful screwdriver in any case.
Yes, it is, isn't it?
Sewing machines. Got high and low, so it's got 2 heats on it, on, off, stands on the little stand. Make sure you don't pick it up by this bit, because that bit does get hot, so it has a safety guard around it. Great to take into classes because it's small and it's light.
It's lovely, and you do get, as Jenny said, you do get that stand as well. This is also offered on FlexiPay. Wow, 2 interest-free FlexiPays of just £18. That means if you open up your Flexi basket, everything else that you want to put in that Flexi basket, you can spread the cost. And talking of, I love my micro stitch.
Let me get mine.
This is brilliant. I use this at home, and I use it for things like you can use it for emergencies as well as obviously tacking your quilting bits together.
See, I have my mic in place. With an micro tagging.
Very good.
Yes, and I frequently have to do my skirt or various other, or running repairs.
Yes.
Yes, or fasten a cushion up if I can't be bothered to stitch it up. Tag it with the micro tagging.
But it really is very useful, believe you me. If as well, maybe you're popping in zips, and you don't want to tack before you sew your zip on the sewing machine, you can use your micro stitch.
And these really little
and
tiny,
they're tiny little, so they are so this is so useful. I love mine. Ever since I remember I did that show with you, I don't know, about a year or so ago, and I saw this and I thought, I've got to have it. And it's brilliant. And of course you get in the pack, you get your refills anyway, but then you're also getting your extra pack of your refills. This is brilliant, believe you me. 285221 is the item number there. If you've got like maybe a hem and your skirt has come down and you just need to fasten it quickly, do it. The hem on your curtains have come down, you need to quickly fasten it. Get this, £22 and 49 pence. We have got loads more on the show, lots more fabrics, and we've got your scissors, we've got everything there. But of course this is about the Quilting Classroom with Jennie Rayment, and it's just about to start, so stay tuned. Have a look at the website, because on the website you'll see everything. All of the classrooms are there on the website, so you can go back and refer. In fact, October 2012, when the classroom first started, you can go back to that date. So it's all there for you to research. But right now, we're going to hand over to the lovely Jennie for her quilting classroom.
Morning. Right, I sincerely hope you're all sitting comfortably and you press record, because this is by request. You want to know how to bind, to back, how to quilt, whether it be by hand or machine. Now bear in mind, this is a very quick waltz through how you do it. There is lots and lots of information out there on the internet if you want it, in various books. But at least here you can see it live. Now what we're going to be doing is sewing together the blocks initially. And we worked our way through, over the classrooms, 9 different blocks. And indeed, in Quilting Classroom 14, this was the PDF for Quilting Classroom 14, I showed you a picture of how I was going to stitch the blocks together in the end. Now, when you come to sew your blocks together, they should be the same size, okay? It will pay you to make certain that they get squared off. Now, when it comes to squaring them off, we did have quite big blocks. We had 14.5-inch blocks. Let me just move this little lot out the way. These square rulers are particularly good because when you come to square off, they've got a 1/4-inch line round the very edge of the ruler. And this means you can position the 1/4-inch line on the top of the point and, if necessary, trim something off. Now, the very big thing to be careful with, when you come to trim the blocks, think about it before you hack lumps off. When I put my quag together, and looking at the one at the back here, I made certain that the blocks I trimmed first were the ones that had lots of points, because these I had to get my trimming so the points were correct. The blocks where I applied a square to, this is an applique, I can cut that back to being any size. There were no points that mattered. So when I squared my blocks up, I checked that these ones and that one were the same size, and then cut everything else back to suit. Now, when you come to actually start to sew the blocks together, you will have possibly 9 squares. And these represent the blocks. There just isn't room in the studio to get the whole lot laid out. So here are your 9 squares. Now, if I were going to sew them together, I don't go for the sew 3 rows of 3. Personally, I find it a bit of a problem, because if you do your blocks as 3 rows of 3, you've got to jiggle these 2 to get those seams to line up, and then you've got to jiggle this lot to get those seams to line up. I find it better to do 2 squares together, 2 squares together, a block of 4. The center seam is simple. Then I put 2 together and bung it on the end. That again is simple. Finally, you've got 1 row of 3 to jiggle and get those seams lined up. Now, you might say to yourself, I don't want to just have squares. I would like to have something called sashing. Sashing is the strip that goes between the blocks. And on this small quilt, I've got blocks that have been sashed together. When you're going to be doing sashing, I like to put a little square at the junctions of my sashing. Now, this is sashing, not as it was called scrapping by somebody on a show which we won't mention. So you've got the sashing. These little squares will be cut the same width as your sashing bands. Ideally, all these squares will be the same size, and all your sashing bands will be the same length. And then basically how it gets pieced together is it pays to lay out the blocks, lay out the strips in between. And you can gradually see, as you lay them out, the order of stitch. So lay your strips out. And this is where even I, and okay, I've been sewing for quite a long time, and it's my job, is I will number things. I will do a bit of sewing. I will pick it up, put it down, look at it. Because when you start to analyze how the sashing goes, that block has got 2 sides with a strip on it. So you would stitch 1 strip onto one side, a square onto the end of the other one, so you frame the 2 sides of the block, as we have here. If I then move to the next one, this block I could do the same thing to. But the one on the end has only got one strip on it. So you lay it out and gradually add the strips in the right order to build it up. Think about it, and it pays, believe you me, to number it. Right, let's get rid of all that. Now, when it comes to adding the borders, once you stitch your entire quilt together, and let's just imagine this is the entire quilt, I added a border, and indeed round the quilt that's on the wall here, I cut a 3-inch strip and added it all the way around the entire thing. When you come to add your borders, folks, you will not be loppers. Nobody out there, and yes, you can feel guilty, is going to be a lopper. What's a lopper? A lopper is somebody that takes a strip of indeterminate length, lays it upon their quilt, lets a bit hang out one end and a bit hang out the other end, stitches it on and lops it off. What happens, my friends, is it goes lopsided, this, and it stretches. If you are going to add borders to your quilt, I would measure the size of the quilt, cut yourself 2 pieces exactly the same length. So measure it, cut the pieces. Make sure you take the selvages off. Don't throw everything on the floor, I have to pick it all up afterwards. So cut the 2 pieces the same length. Now, when it comes to measuring it, the best place to measure any quilt is not down the outside edge, because that's probably stretched when you ironed it. Not across a seam, because that'll be a bit tight and taut, but in a bit. So sort of come in a bit and measure it perhaps 3 or 4 inches in from one side. Cut your 2 strips the right length, put them onto the quilt, matching them at the ends, and pin them on. And this is where the flower pins are so very useful, because when you pin them on, they're nice and flat, and if you pin them on like that, you can heave them out when you come to stitch. 1 strip will go one side, 1 strip will go the other side. You ease the quilt to make it fit the strips, all right? Nobody out there is going to be a lopper, are you? No, miss, absolutely, definitely not. Right, when you've done your quilt, it'll be time to start layering it. Now, this represents my quilt, because obviously I can't get the entire studio and use all the floor. So this is my quilt. It will need to be layered, and I'm using the Hobbs batting. Cut the batting a little bit bigger than the quilt. It always pays. More is better than less. You'll then need a backing fabric. And if you're making a quag, believe you me, it pays to make certain that the backing fabric is a nice material, because you are going to see it as 1/2 of the quag. So make certain it's a nice bit of fabric. You can, of course, always join it together, and there's no reason why you can't make back art. Back art is where you make a quilt on the back as well. But that's way too complicated for me, and I can't be bothered. So I've got my quilt top, my wadding, the Americans call it batting, so don't get confused, and my backing. These need to be held firm. One way of doing it, and I appreciate that not all of you can do this, is to actually kneel on the carpet, lay your quilt out on the carpet, and stick the quilt to the carpet with your pins at 45 degrees down the edge. And you would pin the backing fabric all the way down, keeping it nice and taut. I then put the wadding on top and put a few pins in that, and then finally put my quilt on top. Now, I appreciate that not everybody is as agile as I am. Therefore, you could, with, say, masking tape, stick the quilt backing to, say, a table, lay the wadding on top, lay the quilt on top. Now, when it comes to tacking the layers together, you have a choice. You can do it with safety pins, but oh dear, they're a pain, because they get stuck in the machine, or they get stuck in the quilting hoop if you're doing it hand quilting. You can do it by hand, and I must confess, I always used to do it by hand, and in fact would still do if I had the time and wanted to make perhaps a quilt for exhibitions. Because without doubt, I feel tacking up by hand is probably the best. The snag is, though, if you're going to free motion over it, all the tacking stitches get muddled up with the free motion. So it's a very good idea for hand quilting, not necessarily for machining. These gold eye basting needles are particularly good, A, because they've got big eyes and you can see to thread them, and B, because they'll go through the thick layers, and they're thin enough to weave in and out. When you are tacking up your quilt, I would start in the center, and I tend to tack outwards, believing that as you're pushing the needle through, you're also pushing the fabric out.
I'm not a fan of going backwards and forwards because I feel you're dragging the fabric this way, dragging it back again. So I would tack working out from the centre. And I do it a bit like the Union flag, sort of north, south, west, east, diagonally, and then fill in the gaps. That is time consuming. And as a word of caution, should you be doing it on a fabric, a carpet that's got a slight curl to it, one of those shag pile ones, don't, because I had a student who did her entire quilt out, a great big 8-foot quilt, and we all tacked it up through to the carpet. Great. The best way, or the quickest way, is to tack your layers together is use the tag gun. Now you need a tag about every 4 inches, and literally push it through the layers and fire it. If you bought from Create and Craft, and we've had these on the site many times, one of the True Cut rulers, this is remarkably good because if you shove it underneath your quilt, it lifts it up enough so that when you push the micro tag gun through the quilt, it stops it from going into the carpet. Now this wasn't my idea, this is the idea from Chris from Midsummer Quilting, where I happened to be yesterday. And if ever you go to Midsummer Quilting, he offers you coffee, sits you down, chats to you. Really, really nice place, and they've got some nice fabrics. So that's Midsummer Quilting near Chilcompton. But firing the tag gun through the little holes will stop the needle getting damaged by the carpet. So you would want to tag it up. Tags about every 4 inches. Make sure you tag well round the edge. Now, once you've done all the tagging, what it would pay you to do, and again, let me get rid of that, is to actually stitch round the edge. And on this quilt, I've got a larger quilt that has got sashing on it, where I have done the tagging, but what I've also done is I've stitched round the edge. I did it with the free motion foot, but you could do it by hand. Now, if you're going to hand quilt, it would pay you to, when you stitch round the edge, to also fold the excess backing fabric over the raw edge of the quilt, because this will prevent the raw edge of the quilt getting very tatty as you're sewing, because as you drag it around, it tends to fray. So protect it if you're hand quilting. If you're machining, it's probably not going to fray too much. So you will go round the edge with a long stitch all the way around the edge. Okay, once you've done your quilt and tacked it up, it's now time to think about how are we going to quilt it. Now there's an awful lot of talk talked about quilting. Many people look at the wonderful quilts you'll see at exhibitions and see those tiny, tiny, tiny little hand stitches. Without doubt, hand quilting can be an art, but you don't have to do it that beautifully. I'm also aware that people's hands are different. They don't work in the same way. I have a mate of mine, Helen Deegan, whose hand quilting is superb, as indeed is Sandy Lush's, but their hands are a different shape. So, you know, not always is it the fault of the needle or the quilt. Sometimes you're just not made to do tiny stitches. There's no reason why you can't do considerably bigger stitches. I mean, if you look at sashiko, sashiko is the stitching of, and you wouldn't do it with this size needle, just so you can see it on the camera, of really big stitches that would represent or resemble little tiny weeny grains of rice. And you could think about doing it with a coloured thread. I mean, if you go and look at the old quilts, they're not beautifully quilted. Quilting is the act of stitching the layers together to keep them all together. And this is where we have a slight problem with the American term. To an American, quilting is everything, the whole lot. To a Brit, quilting is the action of anchoring the layers together, and you can do this by hand stitching. What could be quite useful if you wanted to hand stitch exactly the 1/4 inch away from your seam is to use the masking tape to mask along the seam. Then you stitch beside that and you won't wobble anywhere near so much. So consider doing big stitches. What if you didn't want to do that much stitching? You want a quick job. Okie dokie. Then the way to do that would be to tie it. Now, quilt ties are not difficult to do. You could consider using a coloured thread. I've got an embroidery thread. To do a quilt tie, you go down, leave an end, come back up a little bit further away. Okay, got it so far? Really complicated this. Down again through the first hole, back up through the second hole, and you'll never guess what you do with the ends. You tie them together. And when we come to tie them together, folks, you do it with a reef knot. That's right over left and under, and then left over right and under. Let me cut the end off, and I can do it.
And the reason why I do it with a reef knot is hopefully it will stay. And that is a really complicated thing called a quilting tie. I think you can cope. So down, up, tie the ends together, cut them off. But consider, you could use a thin ribbon. You could use buttons and tie the quilt together with buttons. So you don't have to machine it. But if you are going to machine it, there are two ways of doing it. One way of doing it is to use something called the walking foot. And the reason why the walking foot has to be used is when you've got a 3-layer sandwich, you've got a backing, you've got wadding, you've got a top fabric. If you were to sew those layers with the regular foot on your machine, you're going to get one of the layers creeping. You just can't help it. You might get away with it on a small sample. On a big quilt, it's not going to work. And the reason why the walking foot works is that the walking foot also has a set of feed dogs. These are the feed dogs down the bottom here. So what happens is that as the machine sews, is the feed dogs on the walking foot feed the top layer through, the feed dogs on the machine feed the bottom layer through, and the wadding travels through with it. You can then set this to sew at X distance away from the seam. The problem is with the walking foot, and a big piece of work, is when you get down to any seam junction, you've got to drop the needle in, then you have to turn the quilt because you can't turn the walking foot. That is obviously static. So there's a fair amount of turning. But the walking foot is the choice if you want to machine it and use the walking foot and the machine rather than do it free motion. Now, if you are going to do it free motion, and just let me show you one last sample that's been walking footed round. This has a set of lines going round it that I use the walking foot, and I simply outlined round the blocks. I don't always see the point of doing stitch in the ditch, because if you outline a 1/4 of an inch round it, you can make the centre shape rise up a little. If you do stitch in the ditch and you hit a bunch of seams and you wobble and it notices, it can show. And that is why use of invisible thread is remarkably good, because it will save you the problem of when you're wandering along and you wobble a bit, and the invisible thread won't show so much as using regular cotton. When you're using invisible thread, you'll need to make very certain that you have in the bottom bobbin either something like cotton or silk, an inert one, and you'll also probably have to take your top tension down. Okay, coming to free motion. When it comes to doing free motion, this is the act of wiggling all over a piece of work. If you do your stippling, as it's technically known, very close, it's called vermicelli. If you do your stippling further apart, it doesn't appear to have the name, but hey, come on, if it's very close, it's vermicelli. Perhaps this could be, I don't know, ravioli or macaroni or something like that. But this is the act of wiggling. Now, you don't have to do wiggle. You can do all sorts of different lines. And again, if you go online and you put in free motion quilting designs, there are many different designs that you can see where you can literally create a continuous line design. So how do you do it? Very briefly how you do it, and bear in mind this is a quick whiz through how quilts get put together. I've got my free motion foot on this little machine. Your free motion foot could look something like any of these. It will be a foot that's got a sort of loop at the bottom of it. And the loop might be clear, it might have an opening in it, a cutting in it, it might be round, but it's going to be a foot, and it might also have a spring on it, because the foot's sometimes called a hopper foot or a darning foot. This goes on the machine. Now, when you put the free motion foot on, and only when you put the free motion foot on, that's where you lower the feed dogs. In this little machine, you lower the feed dogs inside the front of the machine. I would, if I were doing any free motion, always have my stitch length at 0. It means the needle goes up and down. There's nothing gripping the fabric, and the commonest problem when you're free motioning is not to remember or to forget to lower the presser foot. If you don't lower the presser foot, you get great loops underneath. So remember to lower the presser foot. Begin by lowering presser foot, bringing the bottom bobbin to the top. This means you don't get the bird's nest underneath. When you've pulled it up to the top, you of course would be the right way on your machine. Do a few stitches on the spot. Skate away, but drop your needle down. Find your scissors, which you've gone walkabout. There we go. And cut the threads off. If you wished, you can leave the threads long enough if you're feeling really picky and feed them into the work later. What one will then do is hold the work, and all you are doing is you are steering it. And if you run the machine quite fast, you will get more control. And it's just a question of practice. Sometimes I find it better to actually sew away from myself, so I work that away in that direction rather than towards me. But when you have a go, this batting is actually remarkably good for stitching on because it holds it nice and firm. But run the machine quite fast. And remember, you are moving it, because if you don't move the work, it's not going to go anywhere because there are no feed dogs to push it through. It pays to practice, and ideally you don't go over yourself, you just do a series of wiggles. But hey, come on, you don't have to do wiggles. You could do straight lines. You can write, oh, let's see if I can write Jenny standing sideways. This is just showing off being a smart what's-it. There you go. I should have finished it with a flower. So that is a little bit about free motion. Once you've done your quilt and you've done all the quilting on it that you need, we're going to think about binding it. Now, when it comes to binding, if you are binding something that is round, you absolutely 100% have to have bias cut strips. And that is where this ruler comes into play. If you take this ruler and you take the piece of fabric you want to cut on the bias, open it out, put that edge of the ruler along the straight edge of the fabric, that puts your ruler on the bias automatically. Taking the cutter, guard off the cutter, cut up the edge. You now have a bias cut. From this cut edge, you can then cut the strips of whatever width your little heart desireth. And for many bindings, I will use something like 2 inches or 1 3/4 inches. The ruler is marked out in 1/4 inches, so it is not difficult to get it so that you can actually cut it out on the right line. And then cut up the edge of the ruler. Let's move it up a bit. And that will give you your bias cut strips, which are vital for going round anything that has a circle. If you're quilting round something that has a straight edge, you don't need bias cut strips, in my opinion. Now, there are various ways of doing bindings. In fact, there is a wealth of stuff out there about bindings, and you have no idea of the hassle that is, oh, I don't do my binding like this, I do it like something else. Some people like to use their binding where they use a double folded strip. Some of you might well have one of the bias tape machines, and you might have bought a quilt tip. Very useful, because this will fold your fabric, send it through pressed, ready to bind without the damage that you can do when you do the iron. It also comes with a 1-inch get my teeth in straight, bias binding tip that you can feed the fabric through. So you might be using that. If you haven't got that, then I found using the clover, where's it gone to? There it is. This clover bias binding tip, very good. Now, you could use your fabric folded over in half. That's one method. The corners on that get done in much the same method I'm about to show you. If you're going to use the clover one, I took a 2-inch wide strip, cut the end on the diagonal, and remember I'm using a straight cut strip, but if you cut it on the diagonal, it feeds through the guide much better. Pop it through the opening of the guide there. Let's turn it over. Turn it over and use something like a barbecue skewer just to poke it through so it can come out the other end. Come on, go out the end there. There we go. Get it sorted out so that it runs through there nicely. And this is where the clover iron is remarkably useful for pressing the bias. A really good tip, use a bit of corrugated card. You don't need an ironing mat, just use corrugated card. I was amused to note that Philippa Naylor, who's one of our really top quilters, now does a lot of her pressing onto a piece of corrugated card. And if you literally pull the thing back and jiggle it's a jolly good word that, the little iron, it will iron it an absolute treat. But do it onto a piece of card, don't do it onto your cutting mat. Having made our strip of bias where we folded sides to middle, it's going to be applied. Now this represents my quilt. Notice I've done a bit of quilting in the middle. Open the bias out, and how you're going to do it is lay the edge of the bias on the edge of the fabric. You then start to stitch it on, sewing just this side of the crease, just inside it. And it's as we come up to the corner. Now, rather than take too much time of changing the foot over, I'm just going to use the free motion foot. you will use the regular foot, all right? You promise you're listening to that. You will use the regular foot. It's just I don't want to get the screwdriver out and have to do absolutely everything. So this will be a bit wobbly. Right, so you will proceed along sewing just this side of the crease. Stop when you get a couple of inches from the corner. What I like to do then is put a small nick in the fabric, and I've just lost my scissors, there they are. A small nick in the fabric, and the nick is lined up exactly with the edge of the quilt. You will find all these instructions are actually in the Foldy Roldy book, which is here. All right, it's all in that book, so if you've got the book, you can refer to that. Having made a small nick, I then fold the fabric round at an exact right angle. When you fold it round, you'll get a little triangle sticking up. Now, this is a no-go triangle in this direction. It will pay you to bend the triangle and crease it so you've got a decent crease, because you're going to sew up to the triangle, go no further. You will stop on that line, on that diagonal line. Promise me you won't go any further. You will then raise the presser foot, pull the work out, turn it round, flip that triangle over, and now what we're going to do, if I pick it up like that and hold it, is we're going to do something that I didn't know about. I now call this the Carol Lane corner, because it was Carol who showed me how to do it. I used to start my stitching the other side of the triangle there. I now start it right on the very corner and sew straight across. So I don't know who gave Carol Lane the idea, but it actually works a treat. And you proceed down. And you keep on going all the way around. So let me take that out of the machine and you can see what it does. Because I'm afraid I like to have my corners mitered. So what we did was we sewed up to the triangle, we flopped the triangle over, we sewed right the way along. Now, when I fold this back, look, I get a beautiful miter. And what will happen on the back, if I just trim all the edges off, is it will miter equally easily on the back. So once you've stitched all the way around, and I know I haven't done the joining together bit, I'll do that in a moment, is you are going to fold it right back, and notice it miters, turn it over, and you'll find on the back it actually miters again, and that gives you a really neat corner. Okay, and it's going to look something like this. So you will be folding it round there and folding it back. Now, having got your binding on, and this is a sample I meant to use, when you come to join the ends together, no, it wasn't, this was a sample I meant to show you how the ends get joined together. Dear, dear, dear. It's getting up at 3:15, it wasn't, it was 10 to 3 this morning because they shut the A3. When it comes to joining the ends together, I would sew round the corner, come along towards the beginning. When you start, you need to remember to leave a little bit, okay, so leave a little tail. All I do then is open up the beginning edge, fold it over, finger press it, line up the other piece so that that is lined up as well, trim the two pieces off, and then on the sewing machine I will stitch them together. Then simply pop it back again and sew straight past, and that makes it really nice and neat. So we can see it on this one if I can find where I actually joined it. It would probably have been here. There's a little join, and well, you can see that there. It's probably not the best fabric to do it with. Once you've got the binding on, if you're going to make a quag, you now need to add the handles. Now the binding goes on the right side of the fabric. The handles are made by taking something like a 4.5-inch strip. What I do when I make my handles, and again it's in the book, is press about 1/4 inch over on my 4.5-inch strip, arm the other side up by about just over 1/3 the entire width, repress it so that's in the very center, and of course the ideal iron to use for that is again the good old clover iron, because you'll get a nice little pressing. Never mind, that's all right. Everything's falling down at the back here. Once you've pressed it, whatever the width of that strip is, cut a little bit of the batting, and you can use up all the offcuts. Lay the batting inside, wrap it up, and I'd pin it. And these flower pins, I'm sorry, I really like these flower pins. Pin the flower pins through, so you just take a small pin, a little indent into the fabric, so you're holding all the layers. What I would do then is I would sew straight down the middle, and I tend to use something like a wiggly stitch,
Having sewn straight down the middle, I'll sew up and down the sides. Now, to make a quag, you'll want 2 handles, strangely enough, one for each side. So this is the front of my quag, my main quilt. I've put the binding on the front. This is going to go on the back, and you will stitch the handles to the back of the quilt, and I've got a small one here. Making sure that the wrong side of the handles goes to the right side of the quilt. I might have got that the wrong way round. I'll have to think about this. No, it's the other way round. Right side of handles goes to the right side of the quilt. And you want to put your handles in the middle of the quilt, because we're going to put another panel on the back. Stitch those on, and then when you turn the binding over it, the binding will cover the raw edge of the handles. Once you've gone all the way around, it's going to end up looking something like this. And here is your finished quilt with its handle. You will then need to construct a panel in exactly the same way. And the panel wants to be approximately 1/3 the measurements of your top quilt in both directions. The panel also has a handle, and it is to be hoped that the handle distance is the same as the handle distance on the big quilt. You might want to think about it before you rush ahead and do it. When it comes to making the quag, here is the back of my quilt. There is the panel. You simply put the panel on the back of the quilt, and I'd make sure I had the right sides together. Pin it on, and then you simply sew it on. And when you've stitched it on, you will find that you will be able to turn your quilt into that little bag. Now, if you found that actually doing all that quilting was an absolute so-and-so and you just couldn't cope, there's no reason why you can't make your quilt up using the bag method. The bag method will be done by putting your quilt top onto the wadding, doing any form of stitching you like, and you could use the regular presser foot. So if you've got the brand new Weekender and it hasn't got the walking foot with it yet, then you could use that. Do your stitching, but wadding only. Trim the quilt back to the wadding. Put the backing on. Remember, you need to add a handle. The handle gets added first. The wadding goes on the back. Sorry, the handle goes on the front of the quilt. The backing goes on there. You would sew all the way around and turn it through the gap. So you could cheat. But basically, the whole thing for the quag is you want the quilt. The panel is made in exactly the same way. Panel goes on back of quilt, sew it on. When you've done, you simply fold the thing into thirds, thirds like that and thirds like that, and then you turn it through the little bag. I'm not going to do that because it's only pinned, and you will end up with the quag. And voila, there is your quilt, what would have turned into your bag. And there's the bag on the back. All right, all the information you will find is mainly in foldy-roldy patchwork pizzazz. So that's just about it, the quilting classroom for now. Where's our Jackie? She's gone to sleep in the corner. Dear, 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 here she comes at the gallop. And you've no idea of the mess I've got behind here. Absolutely terrible.
Jennie! Oh, my gosh.
Yes.
Oh, don't look. You don't want to see what's happening. That was brilliant. That was absolutely brilliant.
Yes.
I loved everything that Jennie showed us. I hope you recorded everything. Shall we have a recap of everything that you used as well?
Yes. Yep.
In fact, we've got some extra things to show you that we didn't get to show you at the top of the show. Let's have a look at these kits here. This is your hexagon and diamond shaped bundle. It's 319560, £26.99 is that price there. Of course, we do have the flower head pins. This is in the kit. We saw Jennie using the flower head pins. They're very useful. Remember, you also get your invisible thread. Of course, you get your 1/4 inch masking tape. You get the leather thimble there. You get everything that you need. It's all there, and of course your needles as well. 319561, £8.09. Gooterman threads, a necessity, 100 metres on each roll. 7 rolls there, beautiful colours, the essential colours I would say, £15.29, 319759, high quality with the Gutermann threads actually. Let's have a look at your acrylic ruler bundle. So you've got your simple easy square, you've also got your easy rule there. These are perfect and certainly if you're going to your craft classes as well, quick to grab, very, very essential. And remember your easy square is lefties for lefty and righty, which is brilliant. 248645, £31.49. Should we have a look at your companion handles, because again this bundle is brilliant. You've got your easy angle, you've got your try mate there, you've got your templates, you've also got your try and rect tools, you've got everything that you need there, and this is on FlexiPay as well, so that means all you're going to pay today is £25.63. 275992 is your item number there. The bias ruler, a real essential, really easy way of making sure you get precision bias cuts every single time, and it folds, so perfect for those weekend getaways or your craft classes. £20.69, 268314 is your item number there. Remember, if you have opened up your flexi basket, pop in your goodies into that flexi basket as well. Maybe this, maybe your foldy rolly book there, and again if you want to make that quag, it's in the book too. 275978 is the item number there. We've got beautiful fabrics as well. The doves, the chicks, they're absolutely beautiful. Oh, we're going to do the doves first. The doves, there we go. These are stunning. You've also got the sort of lilac polka dot in there, which really ties up with the polka dot of the doves. You've got your creams in there, you've got your ditzy print, absolutely beautiful. All of this for just £9.89 if you're in the Create and Craft Club. 319472. We've got more fabrics for you, again 100% cotton. This is your chicks. These are stunning, very fresh colours there. 319474, £8.09. Shall we talk about the square rule? This is absolutely fantastic to square off all of course, your patchwork and your quilting, and great to use. Oh, I'm just seeing what Jenny's doing. It's brilliant. 303500, that is the item number there. £15.29. The cutting mat is essential. Remember, it's a double-sided cutting mat there as well. Perfect for your patchwork or your paper craft. Remember, it's longer-lasting, self-heating mat, and the easy-to-read measurements there also. 24 by 18, a nice size there. 304771, £20.69. We've got your Sew All thread for you, also by Gutermann, £15.29, brilliant price there, and great colour tones also. 307982 is your item number for that one. We've got your invisible thread also. We've got this in the clear or indeed the smoke. The choice is yours. You're not getting all 5, you're getting 1. 253229, that is the item number, £1.34. Now remember, you're getting one of those threads there. The rotary cutter, an essential. We absolutely love this. Ergonomic handle, nice and easy to use, easy grip there as well. You're going to get precision cutting. Great to use with your acrylic tools also. £15.29. 307826 is your item number for that one. And of course your Clover mini iron with the stand, with the screwdriver. The reason why you've got the screwdriver, as Jenny says, is that you can actually change the actual sole plate, the plate of the iron, so if you wanted a bigger one. But it's so useful. Use a bit of cardboard to press on. That was a good tip there from Jenny, always. And again, remember, this is offered on FlexiPay, 2 interest-free FlexiPays of just £18. 192527 is your item number there. So let's have a look at what else have we got. We've got more fabric for you. These are absolutely beautiful, your ditzy print fabrics, your fat quarters there. You've got 6 of those pieces. The ditzy prints in various shades, absolutely wonderful, and again 100% cotton. £8.99 is a brilliant price. 309975. We've got extra fabrics for you. You're loving the fabrics this morning, and these are again a really great price at £9.99 or £8.99 if you are in the Create and Craft Club. I love the fact that we've got the ditzy prints in there, we've got the gingham, we've got the paisley prints in there. It really is a delightful pack. 309971. Then of course one of my other favourites is the micro stitch tool with your refill, the choice of black or natural refill. We do have extra refills on the website, but it's well worth getting this. 285 221 £22.49. Shall we have a look at your buyer's tape maker? And again, making everything so easy. It really is incredible. £8.99 or £8.09. 192 149 is that item number there. I love this.
You see, look, I made it.
I know.
I stitched it round. Okay, with the free motions, I've wobbled a bit, but that's a Dipsy print pack. You see, there's a little flag.
That's lovely. That fabric is beautiful, isn't it?
Nice?
As well.
It actually has a really nice smooth thing to it.
Yes.
But this binding thing does make life easy.
The binding tape.
Yes. Yeah.
So basically, you've just shoved the fabric in.
Yes, and shove the fabric in. It comes out the other end, and
oh.
There you go. Oh, sorry, on the cardboard.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, of course.
There you go. Well, actually, it was turned off, so
yeah.
Yes.
That's brilliant. We love it. The buyer's tape maker, 25 millimetres. Should we have a look at that quilt then that we started? Should we have a look?
Yes.
This side.
That side. That side. That side. Because actually, I've got a confession to make.
Go on.
Yes. Okay. Not this one, but the one behind you.
Yes.
Go. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going.
What confession?
Well,
it's
I
confession
made
time.
some comment.
Oh, yes.
About you must make your backing fabric very nice. On this quag, which is the first one,
yes.
I used a rotten old sheet. Sorry. So what I had to do is lift it up, our Jackie.
Yes.
I had to stitch another panel so that when I turn it into a quag,
right.
that is the back of the bag.
Yes.
So you are warned, you lot. Make your quilt backing nice. So that's a quag. That's a quag. That's a quag from the foldy roldy. What's it called? Patchwork.
Foldy Rolly Patchwork.
Can't even remember what my own book is.
Should we have a look at that book? Talking of the book, let's move over this way. The Foldy Rolly Patchwork.
Better prove it to them. It's actually in there, because otherwise
that would be a good thing.
Look.
Oh, there it is.
Okay, look, there's a quag.
Yeah.
It's called a fizz gig quag.
A fizz gig
But you see,
quag.
it's ideal. I mean, think. So she's grabbing this one, because this is another quag.
I love Jenny.
Think picnics.
Yes.
Or you could put a rubberized polythene matting to it and think you could sit. You don't have to have a cotton basting. You could put, you know, a tarpaulin or something.
Yes.
So when you turn it right side out...
Yeah, you could put a weatherproof backing on it, couldn't you?
Okay.
That's a very good idea.
And there's the quilt that's in the bag.
That would make a beautiful picnic rug. Very good idea.
Babies, you see, you can make a baby one. You don't have to use these blocks. So you could just use that. I mean, this fabric.
Oh, that would be perfect for the baby.
Great for a little girl.
Yeah.
A baby who didn't know the flavour it was going to be, you'd be playing safe with that.
That is great. You've got to get
bag.
the book then. £13.49, 275978. That is the item number there. Now, myself and Jenny, we're back at 10.
When we won't be doing classroom, but we'll do more demos.
We'll do more demos at 10 o'clock.
You can learn.
And I can learn. Then, of course, oh my gosh, we have got the Tool Shed show at 12 o'clock, Tool Shed, and guess what? It's going to be something to watch. There's going to be, we don't know what's going to happen because it's Dean and Martin for the 2 hours. So we don't know what's going to happen, but send your emails in, do write in, and any questions that you want to